Hello, this is Paul Reese, and I'm back from my major operation. And I hope I don't list too much because I can't help it because I'm missing a few teeth. Tonight we're going to talk about the assassination of President Kennedy when he was assassinated at Dealey Plaza in November 22nd, 1963. As you know, there's been a lot of controversy about it lately, saying that is the Warren Commission correct with the one gun theory with the 3 bullet theory and whatever. And there's some people who say different. And tonight I got with me Derek Sanderson and Jeffrey Young, who is formerly WFRE's only man who's been doing a lot of research on it. So, gentlemen, you have anything to say to open or to get the thing rolling or whatever? What do you think about the Kennedy
I believed the Warren Commission up until a certain point. Then I started thinking, using my head, looking at some of the conclusions, and I started to change my views. Only when I saw this Zapruder film was when I completely disregarded everything the Warren Commission had to say.
That was on the Geraldo Rivera show
right.
A couple of years ago. You haven't seen the Zapruder film, right?
I haven't seen the Zapruder film, but I began to doubt it when through a friend of mine who I worked with one summer. That was the summer of '66.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was even.
And he was the first one I ever heard doubt the Warren Commission.
Yeah.
And he had all kinds of documented facts and all. And he took every point that I heard when I listened to the Warren Commission and saw it on TV when they first came out.
Yeah.
With it, he took every one of those facts. Yeah. And either refuted it or showed how it was destroyed or mishandled.
Well, what do you think about the 1 bullet theory? The theory where the bullet was supposed to go through Kennedy's back, out through his throat, into John Connally's back, blasted a few ribs, blasted about a hole of about 5 or 6 inches out of his chest, going through his wrist, shattering his wrist. Shattering a wrist bone is considered to be one of the hardest bones in the body, completely shattering, going through it and exiting the wrist into and lodging into the thigh.
Falling out on a stretcher.
It's falling out on the stretcher. Well, it was in his thigh.
Well, no, it is possible if the bullet's made of kryptonite.
But you know that the bullet that they found on the thing was a perfect specimen of a bullet, not a scratch on it. And in fact,
they found fragments in
his arms and everything else, and they weighed it out, and the bullet ended up weighing more than it was supposed to be originally manufactured. That means that.
Plus, they had a whole bullet also.
They had a whole bullet with some grains missing, and this was supposed to be the bullet that went through Kennedy's throat and and through his back and so on. When they did the autopsy on Kennedy and the operation on John Connally, they took out the fragments from the bullet that went through them, but this was supposed to be the bullet. And when they weighed it out, it weighed more than what the bullet was originally supposed to weigh by the manufacturer's standard. So that was, I think, proof in itself that that 1 bullet didn't do it. And
that's after the metal was cleaned up for any residue of flesh.
Yeah, and another thing that they did, they shot a bullet from the same type of rifle into a wad of cotton or something like that, and there was more structural damage done to that bullet than going through all
You can understand, this bullet broke about 2 ribs. After passing through Kennedy. Broke.
Well, Kennedy, it didn't hit any major bones.
I know that, but
or
still,
anything like that.
It broke bones. It landed in his arm, like you said, in the wrist, and there's a very large bone there.
That's one of the most powerful bones in the body. In fact, in crucifixion, figure in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, just putting the strength of that bone. When they nailed Jesus Christ to the cross, they drove the nail underneath that bone, both bones, and he hung from it, and it didn't break. So that shows you the strength of those.
Well, if that bullet was almost perfect, it obviously never went off.
But if it did went off,
The head of a bullet explodes.
now, I believe it was one of the bullets that was
When it does
fired,
go
but
off.
I don't think that bullet.
And after all the things that it touched, right?
don't-
What
that
we're
bullet-
saying is that bullet was more or less could have been planted.
It could have been planted, but I don't think it was planted. But I think it was one of the bullets that did hit Connolly, but maybe didn't do all the damage that was said. To me, I figured that 5 bullets hit
It would take
taken in
more
by
shots.
Kennedy and Connolly. Kennedy was supposedly hit 3 times. One time he was supposedly hit from the back. Bullet came from the back, hit him through the back of the neck. And which in the film, or what they say in the film, he grimaced, but he didn't make that motion with his fist going up to his throat. The second bullet that hit, that was also the bullet through the back. It was supposed
I
to
assume
go
he was
through the-
forced forward.
He
with
was
the first
he was
bullet.
knocked a little forward with that bullet. The second bullet, I think he got hit with another bullet through the throat. That's when he brought up his thing, which that bullet which came.
That's the in the
That's the
Zapruder
bullet
film shows him going back.
No, that's not the bullet. So that's the bullet that shows Kennedy's fist coming up to his throat, like that. That was the second bullet. After that shot, John Connolly was hit, because it shows in the Zapruder film, and he was hit supposedly by another bullet coming down from the rear. But so far we've counted for 1, 2, 3 bullets.
And that's
After that bullet, there was a shot that missed the whole thing completely, which chipped a piece of the sidewalk off, which hit somebody in the face. That, if I remember, is one of the passersby got hit with a piece of stone from the bullet that missed it, went completely over the.
By the way,
thing.
there's a
That's
photograph.
4 bullets. Then
Wait.
the 5th bullet was the one that hit him in the head.
There is a photograph.
But how many, according to the Warren Commission, how many shots were there?
3.
There were 3
Yeah,
shots.
2 that hit, 1 that missed. Yes.
So do you see the spot they were in?
I see that the spot
If there
that they were in, that they
right
were
at this
trying to-
point, if there is one assassin, and only one assassin, then they have 2 shots, and only 2 shots to account for all of
Yeah,
Kennedy
3
and
shots to
Connolly's
account for.
wounds. Right, because one missed.
Well, it
Yeah,
had to
but
be.
they even say in the time.
See,
that
there had to be a
3 shots-
super bullet because they got the best shot they could find to duplicate what Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly did from that floor of that building.
yeah.
And he could not get the shots off as fast as Oswald accurately because he wasn't even aiming, and he couldn't get them off as fast. He was just
Pulling and
pulling and firing, pulling and firing, pulling and firing. So it
So
was totally impossible.
He
They
just-
knew this. They looked at each other. What could we do? What could we
yeah,
do?
they said he
Well-
made it within the time. He got the bullets.
No, he
off.
didn't. He didn't even get him in time.
I heard he did get him in time,
Well,
but that
it varies.
he didn't have a chance to aim. All he did was just have the rifle in his hand going boom, boom, boom. He was an expert at it, but he didn't have a chance to aim. If he had aimed, it would have taken him, he said, about at least an extra 3 or 4 seconds. Come on,
Okay, what about the type of equipment that Oswald was using in reference to the rifle?
Well, let
and
him say that.
in
he
reference
knows.
to the sight. Most important is the
Yeah,
sight.
but the sight does not help the
That he was
person get
using.
off the bullets. He still has to aim with the sight,
Right.
which still takes a number of seconds.
Well, a more efficient sight.
Yeah, but still, it would add extra seconds. He couldn't have done it in the 5 seconds that it was supposed to be done. He knows more about the rifle.
Well, I'd like to read something.
All right. You can,
The Warren Commission states that, number 1, Lee Harvey Oswald alone, unassisted, shot President Kennedy to death and wounded Governor John B. Connolly by firing 3 bullets at them from the 6th floor, easternmost window of the southern wall of the Texas School Depository Building, with an Italian-made Manchester Kincaro 6.5 millimeter rifle. 3 and only 3 shots were fired. All of the shots were fired within a 5.6 second time span. This is more or less a summary of the Zapruder film, which I think convinced me that Lee Harvey Oswald acted not alone, or if possible, had nothing to do with the shooting.
all right. Well, why don't we give the people an idea of what 5.6 seconds is? Now, I'm going to look at the clock over here, which isn't an exact, exact, but it'd be pretty close to it. I'm going to have complete silence from the time I say now for approximately 5.6 seconds. And we'll start that right from now. That's 5.6 seconds.
It's incredible.
That he got 3 shots off.
It's incredible.
Right.
Like
It's
that.
incredible. It's really incredible.
That's
Also,
approximately- that was more towards 6 seconds.
also, right, more towards 6. Okay.
Because you can't get exactly.
So if you say 3 shots in 6 seconds, it's 1/2 a shot per second, or it would take 2 seconds to get a shot.
it'd be figuring that he
Right,
had
at
his
an
rifle
average.
cocked,
At an
ready,
average, it would take 2 seconds to get a
already
shot off.
aimed. He would shoot the bullet. By the time he shot the bullet, a second would go by. Cock it, go back, go down and aim again,
Well, with the same aim.
and then cock it, and then go back
That
down
was
and aim again.
okay. That's interesting. That was a type of weapon that it could not be fired.
It wasn't like
Right?
that.
It
No,
couldn't be
had to
fired.
be-
Boom, boom, boom.
You know when you had to shoot it, eject the
Okay, it
bullet,
was bolt action.
bolt action.
Okay, so that couldn't possibly be done.
Yeah, the Warren Committee. You can go on and finish reading.
Okay. Abraham Zapruder was a Dallas dress manufacturer. On November 22nd, 1963, he stationed himself on top of a concrete pedestal, which is part of an ornamental pergola near the middle of the Daily Plaza section of Elm Street in downtown Dallas, with his secretary, Marilyn Silsman, by his side and a Bell & Howell 8mm movie camera in his hands. He waited for the president motorcade to pass in front of him. As one of history's most ghastly and political significant events was enacted before his eyes, Mr. Zapruder kept his finger pressed down on the shutter release and filmed the entire event. The result is a graphic film of a president assassination, a historical movement captured for posterity. But of far more importance, the Zapruder film provides absolute, incontestable proof of crossfire and conspiracy. This summary of the Zapruder film was made by a person who, well, his name is Robert Groden. He had the film in his possession, a copy of it. He studied the film for 9 years, frame by frame. He was obsessed with it. These are his findings. The film is available in the National Archives.
To anybody?
I'm told. I think they will show it, but the whole idea of getting it distributed around the country for people to see is
I really think they should.
they can't now because
I know, because
the
it's a
Zapruder
big-
family own it now.
Yeah, and the Time Life owns it, and they're still trying to.
Okay, here's a summary.
I think it should be the property of the people of the United States. I don't believe any one person. Like, they got all these things in the Warren Commission, the rifles, the
Right.
bullets, and everything.
All of this
and
stuff.
it's,
In fact, they even paid Lee Harvey Oswald's wife for the
Right,
rifle
right,
and everything. You know, why can't? I mean, this concerns our country, the president of the United States.
It also is a historical document.
Okay, this is his summary,
Yeah.
which, well, if you see the film.
Well, I've
Yeah.
seen the film.
Okay. Frames 133 to 153. JFK waving to the crowd in front of the Texas School Book Depository, wiping hair from in front of his face. All else is normal. Lincoln is now approaching us. Frame 154. JFK is looking to his left. His right arm is resting on the car door. Frames 155, 156. This is the first splice. Both the government and Time Incorporated do not acknowledge that this splice exists. When the Commission printed frames from the Zapruder film in volume 18 of its evidence, it began after this point to avoid questions. It was here that a warning shot is fired. In a split second, JFK responds and looks to his right to the road sign, frame 157, from where the shot was fired. It was probably not a bullet fired by anyone. It was, in all likelihood, a blank fired as a coordinating shot for the firing teams. JFK must have, at this time, known that something was up. Many witnesses have stated that there was a different sound to the first shot. It appears that JFK does not start to wave again until he feels that the sound was only a backfire, a firecracker, or some similar sound, which were descriptions of those witnesses reporting the sound of the first shot.
So they're saying that that first shot that was fired was like a coordinating shot for the firing teams to get,
More or less.
you know.
You gotta understand, if this was a conspiracy, a lot of people that
They're in
were
on it.
filmed as just passers-by or people taking pictures were in on the conspiracy, and they were probably standing around making sure, okay, everything's clear, you know, go
Yeah.
ahead. they fired a warning shot. This is what he was saying. Okay, frame 189. JFK starts to wave again slowly, nervously, until frame 188. At approximately frame 189, a shot, in parentheses, 1 is fired. It misses the car completely.
Oh,
it was
the first
fired
one.
from behind.
Yeah.
From all indications, it was a broom closet on the second floor of the Daltex building. The shot was high. It flew over the Lincoln and landed at the curb line of the far south side of Main Street, its closest point to Commerce Street, just east of the triple underpass. A section of curbing was struck by the bullet, and a fragment of the concrete flew up and struck James Teague on the cheek. At this point, JFK's right hand falls in an arc as he tries to comprehend what is happening.
Yeah, Kennedy. Probably looking.
Okay. Frame 206. JFK's arm has continued to drop at this point. His entire body is now obscured by the road sign announcing the Stevens Freeway. Only his head is still visible. At frame 207, we have one of the biggest points of discussion in the entire film. At frame 206, there is an obvious horizontal line running through the entire width of the frame just below the halfway mark. At frame 207, we have a similar line 1/3 the way down. Only here, there is a tree on the right side of the frame on the top section, but on the bottom the tree is halfway to the middle. The reason that is, frames 208, 209, 210, and 211 have been spliced out. What he's trying to say is, if you look at the film, okay, one frame and then the next frame where he claims there was a splice made. Say there's a line going, say horizontal, right, across in the film, say a wall.
Yeah.
The next frame, the wall is much lower. It should have dropped gradually, but it dropped too quick for comfort. Okay.
So these are the ones that they spliced out, are the ones that would really nab.
They don't know what was in this evidence. These frames have been spliced out. We'll never know.
No.
The official reason is that when the film was purchased by Time, it was put in the hands of a junior member of the photographic department for enlarging purposes. It was during that process that 4 frames were damaged. Also, frames 207 and 212 were damaged, as well as for the splicing. In all, there are 10 missing or damaged frames in the film, not counting stress marks from the sprocket holes following the second splice. What I don't understand is, why would they put a documented evidence of an assassination of the President of the United States in the hands of a junior?
Well, obviously it was spliced before Time magazine even got it, if you want to put it that way. If there was they say that the most important time for that film is when the President was going behind that sign announcing the Stevens Freeway. That's what the Warren Commission bases its whole thing on, that he was shot after he came out from behind, but there was evidence that there was a shot fired and he got hit while he was behind that thing. That the first bullet hit him through the back and the second one then hit him through the throat.
So what was taken out is what...
What was taken out apparently was the shot that hit him in the back. This way. And then the shot that hit him in the throat was supposedly supposed to come from forward, but they said that shot was the one that went through the back, went through the front, went through the top.
Well, this goes on to explain
they probably
why.
spliced out where that...
Well, that's my own opinion.
the front... they spliced out the evidence of the front shot then.
They spliced out the... they spliced out the evidence of one of the shots. Anyway, go ahead.
Because that shot supposedly passed through him.
Yeah, one of the shots was supposed to go completely through, but they say that he was hit from the back and then through the front, to the neck. He was hit, according to them, he wasn't hit by 2 bullets. He was hit by 3 bullets.
Before I go on, you understand, this man was obsessed with this film. He studied it frame by frame.
Yeah.
Okay. It is frame 210. It is here that the commissioner says JFK could have been first been shot. For this is the first frame in which Lee Harvey Oswald could have fired the president and had been on the 6th floor from the easternmost window. Prior to that point, there is a large oak tree blocking any line of fire from that window to the limousine.
Yeah.
Right? So, in other words, if you would have seen him shot in those frames that are missing, it would have totally disproved the theory that Lee Harvey Oswald did it, because there was a tree blocking his view of fire at that particular time while the president was passing behind that sign.
If,
So they had to cut that film out if you disbelieve
here's your
the
oak
Warren
tree.
Commission.
Oh,
Right, that's it right there. We're looking at a book of the Warren Commission.
so they cut that out because the president was
It
screened
shows
out from
it showed something that would totally go against the
refute
Warren
story.
Commission's
Either
of the one.
the screening
one
out
person
or
theory.
possibly the shot in front.
Okay. However, Oswald wasn't there, although someone else was. This is in the window where Oswald was supposed to have fired. Someone in a red shirt who appears in an 8mm color film taken by Robert Hughes is clearly seen moving in that window. There is also the moving shape of a man in the pair of windows next to the sniper's nest in the same room where Oswald was supposed to have been firing.
By
This
himself.
frame is also important because it is dead center among the missing frames between 207 and 210. This may be the reason it is missing, not for what it shows, but for what it doesn't. Although it isn't generally known, this is frame 212, the president's head is still visible after the splice. There has been no movement in the president's head. He was not hit at frame 210. The Warren Commission needed to have JFK hit as early as possible for Oswald to have a chance to get off a second and third shot by frame 313.
Due to the distance.
Yeah, but he wasn't even hit then.
But at the same time, as late as possible for him to have been hit by the same bullet as Connolly. If it were not for the oak tree in the Zapruder film, they might have succeeded in framing Oswald, but because of the tree, they had to concede a first shot as late as 210. Unfortunately for the Commission, not one man in this entire country could duplicate that incredible feat attributed to Lee Harvey Oswald, who was, according to his Marine Corps records, a rather poor shot. The Commission hired some of the nation's best marksmen, gave them every advantage, and they still couldn't duplicate the shots.
With good equipment.
With good equipment. The rifle he ordered for $24, I think he
I
paid.
think it was $12.
$12, whatever. The firing pin was rusty.
Yeah, and another number of other things were wrong with it, so.
Okay. Right after the splice of frame 212, at the bottom of the frame and to the right of the sign, we begin to pick up a strange object. By frame 221, it is clearly an open umbrella. Frame 224. JFK's left sleeve and shirt cuff now become visible from behind the road sign. As this happens, the umbrella starts to rise and twirl counterclockwise. This umbrella is being held by a conspirator now known for obvious reasons as the Umbrella Man. This man is the only man in the entire motorcade route with an open umbrella. It was a sunshiny, windy day, very impractical to have an open umbrella. Photographic evidence has shown that his umbrella was closed until JFK's car turned into Elm Street. After the killing, while all around him ran away or dropped to the ground, he stood there, his closed umbrella turned to look at the end. Excuse me, I'm reading terrible tonight. He closed his umbrella, turned to look at the end of the motorcade, and slowly walked up Elm Street toward the depository. He has never been identified.
And here it is on here too.
Very.
You want to see
This is in the photographs
of
the Warren Commission.
Warren Commission. You can
And
see the
there's
umbrella.
There's the umbrella.
Right.
There is the umbrella right over there. And I'll show you. This is in the Warren Commission's own book.
Well, I have a bigger picture
Yeah, I
right
know. You
here.
can still see it. See that shadow? That's to show our doubt.
Now, the theories behind the Umbrella Man.
Yes.
It could have been a signal. He could have been firing the warning shot himself.
It could have.
Yeah. I mean, what is a person doing in an umbrella? You know, if you notice, you see all of these things in the Warren Commission.
I don't-
Well, it's possible. This is possible. There were too many. It's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, but the whole
you know,
thing is, it's not a thing. It is in it's in the Warren Commission's photos.
Right.
The
Right.
umbrella.
I don't even think they bring it up in the Warren Commission.
No,
do
they don't. They don't even notice it. You don't have one. There's not one word about the Umbrella Man in the Warren Commission.
Okay.
I guess they just said it was some kind of nut that was standing there.
Oh, there were a lot of nuts, a lot of things that happened, man. You know,
Maybe he just wanted to open up his umbrella.
maybe he was a freak. He
But
had
it's
fetish
funny-
for umbrellas, ladies
But
and
it's
gentlemen.
funny how he opened up his umbrella right before he came. He started to twirl it, and then as soon as the shots were fired, he looked down, he closed it, and walked away.
Actually, it was Richard Nixon. No. And he didn't want Kennedy. Nah, take that back. Disregard that statement.
He said,
As you can see,
Swirling
I do not
thing.
like Nixon, but that's
Swirling.
besides the
Because I'm
point.
probably going, shoot,
Yes, but he came later.
shoot, damn it, shoot.
Okay. Whenever a bullet actually strikes and the moment is captured on film, this actual impact can be seen the exact moment of contact. At the exact moment.
And which bullet is this now?
However, since JFK was behind the road sign in relation to Abraham Zapruder's camera, we cannot see the moment of contact. Okay. We can only assume that he was hit at frame 218. Give or take one, certainly no more than 2 frames. For as JFK becomes visible from behind the sign at frame 223, his hands are still dropping in an arc started around frame 168, allowing for 1/3 of a second for reaction time, with Zapruder's camera running at 18.3 frames per second. When his hand started to rise toward his neck in a protective motion at frame 225, we go back 1/3 of a second, 7 frames to frame 218. The bullet entered the president's throat after nicking the knot in his tie. This shot, number 2, was fired from behind the corner of a wooden stockade fence on the grassy knoll in front to the right of JFK. It did not exist.
Okay, now we have Kennedy shot from in front,
Right.
from the grassy knoll.
Right. Which totally, well,
Which totally, no, just the magnitude of this totally,
Opposite.
this is totally
Right.
refuting the one-man theory.
well, if you see, I mean, if you,
because other than a ricochet,
Yeah, hold it. Now, that
he'll go on to explain here,
shot
but
to his throat
I
came
saw-
from the front.
I saw it as a Zapruder film. The last shot, the headshot, which
Was
blew
from
off
the
the top
front.
of his head,
It's definitely from the front.
knocked his body back.
Yeah, it was
If
from
you're
the
hit
front.
from the front, you'll fall back. If you're hit from the back, you'll go forward. He went back. They're
That-
saying it
His
is
back, he almost was knocked out of the car.
The Warren Commission is saying it is possible that if the bullet hits a nerve, here we go with the if you know this and that your body may jerk. You
but
know,
there's no doubt about it. That
I mean, if
bullet
you
came
see this
from in front.
film,
It's a bad. I seen the film.
oh right,
I know.
right, right.
He's knocked. For a nerve to knock a person a foot and a half off his seat,
Right.
is quite shocking.
Okay,
Sort of
JFK.
backward motion.
JFK's arms are still dropping as he is hit. At frame 225, he reacts. His arms rise in a protective motion towards
Like
his
that.
throat. The rising arms continue until frame 227. At frame 227, a second shot, number 3, hits President Kennedy in the back,
Yeah.
approximately 6 inches below the shoulder blades and just right of the spinal column. It was probably a second shot from the second floor of the Daltex building. The bullet entered, went in approximately 2 inches, but did not exist.
That exit.
Oh, exit.
The
Yeah,
exit.
well,
Yeah.
JFK at this point compressed downward and pushed forward. Is at this point compressed downward and pushed forward.
He's pushed forward like this. This is after the shot, pulling his shot
Right.
up to his throat.
Right.
He's already like that. Then he got shot again, and he's pushed forward to do it like that, down.
Governor Connolly, frames 234. Governor Connolly is hit
So
at
now
this
we
frame.
got 3 bullets.
That was shot already. Frames 234. Governor Connolly is hit at this frame. His cheeks puff out as the bullet, number 5.
4. It should be number
4.
4.
I can't read Roman numerals.
Oh.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. His cheeks puff out as the bullet, number 4, knocks the wind out of him. His right shoulder starts to drop and his hair becomes disarranged. This shot was probably fired from the 6th floor of the depositories building's western corner or from the roof of the Country Records building.
So there must have been, according to this, there was not only more than one assassin, there must have been a whole group of them.
According to this.
About 4. 3 or 4.
The bullet enters his back, exits from his chest, and entered his left knee.
That sounds more logical.
This is the last frame before the fatal shots. Frame 313. A shot, number 5, hits John Kennedy from behind in the right temple. At this point, his head explodes. Since this was a glancing blow, he is thrown forward only slightly. I feel that this was either this bullet or a fragment of it that caused Governor Connolly's wrist wound. Frame 314.
So he was hit. He was hit by
2
4
shots blew
bullets
his
now.
head off. One
Yeah.
from the rear, one from the front, shot simultaneously. Frames 314. A high-powered rifle bullet, number 6, entered JFK's head from the right front, throwing him violently backward and to his left against the seat towards his wife in such force it actually lifted him out of the seat. The rear shot was possible. The rear shot was possible a second. Wait. The rear shot was possibly a second shot from the 6th floor of the depository near the western end.
Now, can I get this
Go ahead.
straight? There was a bullet, the bullet fragment that, bullet that hit him in the rear in the head.
It glanced his head, but it blew his head apart.
It hit him in the rear, and this bullet, these two bullets hit simultaneously, the one in the front and the one in the rear.
Not exactly. The one in the rear hit first, started to throw him forward. Until he was hit by the fatal bullet.
The fatal one. And this is the fragment that came off of this bullet lodged in
Conley's wrist. Okay.
Then the 6th bullet is
The shot from the front came from behind the corner of a low retaining wall, that is, an extension of the concrete pergola on the grassy knoll in front of JFK. The driver of the presidential limousine, William Greer, testified that he speeded up prior to the headshots and that he had been facing forward at the time. He said this because the Warren Commission were pressing him to say this because the Kennedys went violently backwards. They were saying it was because he accelerated.
because
As soon as the first shot, he was looking,
but there was no obvious, there was no, on the film there was no really obvious motion of that car picking up speed.
There's another film taken by another person across the street which shows after the shots were fired, only after Jackie Kennedy went to the trunk end of the car and the agent jumped off his car, ran to the car and got on. That's when the car speeded up.
Yeah.
Only then did the car speed up. This film proves it. You can see it. Okay.
Even the Zapruder film, once he got hit in the head, it didn't look like the car was going any faster.
Okay. He had been facing forward at the time, he said. At the moment of the headshots, Greer appears to be looking, this is the film now, directly at JFK's head. He was looking at him.
As he was getting shot.
Yeah. Only after the president was dead did he begin to accelerate. If it was only a slow reaction time, why was this inaccuracy under oath?
I mean, he was driving along and he heard the shot.
He turned around.
And he turned around after the headshot, and he saw the
It's on film. You see him looking at President Kennedy as he's being killed. Only then did he accelerate. Immediately.
Now, did he turn around like he saw the shots, or did he turn around like he heard shots and then afterwards the whole thing was shot, he was all over and he saw the president? Did he actually was
I don't know exactly. I think he turned around after the first few shots he heard.
And then he turned around and looked at the president as his...
Right. Immediately after the headshots, both Greer and Roy Kellerman, the Secret Service guard next to him, ducked their heads down in reaction to the shots. They both know what has happened. The question here is why total non-reaction of trained men. Greer told the Warren Commission that he heard a sound which he took to be a backfire from one of the motorcycles flanking the presidential's car. When he heard the same noise again, Greer said that he glanced over his shoulder and saw Governor Connolly fall. It was then, he said, that he realized something was wrong and pressed down on the accelerator, as Kellerman said, "Get out of here fast." Frame 345. Jackie climbs out of the trunk of the car to try to retrieve a section of her husband's head. A shock reaction. Secret Service agent Clint Hill finally reaches the car and climbs on at frame 367. He never reaches Jackie. She climbs back in by herself. Frame 407. Here another strange thing appears. It is round near the bottom right of the frame. By frame 412, a man's head begins to become evident. At frame 413, Zapruder stops panning for one frame, and the head, ears, and rifle of the fourth assassin become clear. He then fades to the left as Zapruder pans right toward the triple underpass. Frame 448. Zapruder pans to the stockade fence on the grassy knoll. By frame 454, the first assassin can be made out with his backup man not as clear. He stays visible until frame 478. At frame 486, Abraham Zapruder stopped filming.
Which says...
This is a summary, frame by frame, of what takes place in the Zapruder film, which Geraldo Rivera showed twice.
But he didn't show the whole...
No, he didn't.
I wish he would have shown
He wasn't
the whole
aware
film.
of the assassins hiding in the bush at the time when he showed it.
Yeah, I wish they could get it back again and show the whole film.
Well, they're taking action against him for showing it now. And, Tom Snyder on the Tomorrow Show tried to get a hold of the film, and they wanted too high of a price to show it, There's a Zapruder family.
I don't think it should be a property of anybody. I think it should be a property of the government. I think it should be shown. The whole film should be shown to the people to see if I mean, like, it would be documented proof if you see somebody around an assassination, an area where an assassination is occurred, and you see people running with rifles. It's only apparent that they shot the president. Usually people just don't go running around in the streets with their rifles out, running around. Which is only proof positive that, how many assassins does he figure there was?
4.
4 assassins, 4.
That there were 2 in back and 2 in front.
And so there's another interesting thing in the Warren
And
Commission.
that they caught Kennedy in the center of
There's
the
a
box.
picture here is Kennedy.
He was hit by crossfire from in front
Right-
and back,
right-
according to these
right-
names.
Right as Kennedy was supposedly hit by one of the bullets. You can see one of the Secret Servicemen turning his head
Oh yeah.
backwards like that. If you look hard enough, you could see Kennedy's arms
He's like this.
coming up like that. And right in the corner of the Texas Book Depository, on the front entrance, there's a man. When we have this picture blown up, there's a man who looks exactly like,
Wearing the same shirt
wearing the same exact shirt
that Lee Harvey Oswald was
was
caught.
wearing that day. It looks exactly like Lee Harvey Oswald. And
According
it
to the
came out
Warren
a couple of
Commission.
years later that this
Yeah.
man was. This wasn't at that time. This came out a couple of years
Yeah.
later. The blow-up shot, and they found the guy saying that this guy was Lovelady. Now it's very easy to find somebody who looks similar to Oswald and say, "Well, say you were there." But it's awfully strange, as you mentioned, that he was wearing the same shirt as Lee Harvey Oswald was wearing that day. And from here, it looks like a light-colored shirt. And over here, they have a picture of Lee Harvey Oswald on Friday night with the same shirt but with the jacket. He has a jacket over it this time, but the shirt is light colored and white, like that. This was Friday night. And also, Lee Harvey Oswald assassin was at this press conference. Jack Ruby was at this press conference Friday night. They have films of it, and this isn't of course a film, but they have tapes of it, and he was wearing the same hat.
There's a
and
film
everything
of,
like
there's a
that.
picture of Jack Ruby at the hospital. Well, this is one guy claims he has. I saw the film on the Mike Douglas show. He's at the hospital as the limousine pulls up, and they're taking the body out. He's standing there. War
Jack
purpose,
Ruby
Jack
was
Ruby.
there. So there's a lot, and Jack Ruby, of course, was just the owner
Jack
of,
Ruby wasn't the
Strip
owner
joint.
of a
Was
strip
just-
joint. He
right.
was. This is on record that the Warren Commission refused to put in their final report. He was a gun runner
Yeah.
for E.
he-
Howard Hunt. Lee Harvey Oswald worked with E. Howard Hunt. It's all tied in. It's all tied in. He was a CIA,
Agent.
informant.
He was an informant. He wasn't an agent.
He was in a
Informant.
scapegoat.
The CIA, FBI informant. And there was 2 bums that were in Dealey Plaza who look a lot like E. Howard Hunt. And McGrew, what was the other one? Steiner, it starts with an S.
Frank
Sturgis. Sturgis, yeah.
That's not his real name, by the way.
It's,
I don't know. He has an Italian name.
He has an Italian name, but E. Howard Hunt named him Sturgis.
But, well,
And,
Jack Ruby now. Okay.
No, let me explain one thing that I heard recently. The reason why they found Oswald in a movie theater was that they thinking that Oswald was making a drop at the time to another agent. Usually the CIA uses a system where one guy would go into a movie theater, the agent would go
Sit next to him.
sit next to him, drop the
Whatever
information and walk out.
It's very good undetectable. way of getting something done.
like that. And they said that also Lee Harvey Oswald might have been picking up money because he was planning to buy a car. He was taking lessons, driving lessons and stuff like that. Nothing that would indicate that he would be really, ready for something like this. And there's another thing, a lie detector, some certain type of a lie detector test, but it isn't a lie detector, it's called a stress evaluator. It was taken on Lee Harvey Oswald when they were asking him if he killed President Kennedy. And this stress evaluator has proved 100% effective. It measures situational stress, normal stress from being around people, being in a tight situation like he was. He showed some situational stress, but he said one of the amazing things was when he asked if he shot President Kennedy, he said, I didn't shoot nobody. No, sir, I did not shoot anybody. He showed no stress whatsoever, not even situational stress. And they gave this information to a high police official who's used the machine a lot and didn't say who the man was.
They took the words president out of it.
Yeah, they didn't show who it was, but they showed him the pattern of the voice and say, is this man telling the truth or not? He says he most definitely is telling the truth, and the stress evaluator zone was 100% effective. Then he told them and he was surprised.
Okay, Jack Ruby
Lee Harvey Oswald
told Chief Justice Earl Warren and Gerald Ford, who was on the Warren Commission at the time, get me out of Dallas or you'll never see me alive. Get me out of Dallas and I'll tell you the truth. You might as well say...
just Jack Ruby said?
Jack Ruby, this is on record. Get me out of Dallas. You might as well say that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill President Kennedy, that I did. What he meant by this was never questioned. He was in jail. He was interviewed by a few people. The doctors that took care of him, he spoke to. He was to go before a board to find out, or a hearing to find out if he was innocent, sane or insane at the time of the shooting. At this hearing, he would have been exposed to a mass news media where he would have been able to say what was he was saying up to a lot of people who, by the way, are dead now unnaturally. A week before this hearing, well, it could be, if it's going to come up again and again. A week before this hearing, he contacted a cold and died 24 hours later of lung cancer.
Which was very strange.
Yeah, a few people like Dorothy Kilgallen interviewed Jack Ruby, and she had an hour's interview with him, and she was appearing on What's My Line. She was in her makeup man's chair. She told her makeup man, I have some information that's going to turn this whole country around. She died that night after the show of an overdose of barbiturates and alcohol, which was played up in the paper. There were three men standing on a water tower on top of the overpass where these railroad tracks ran that the car went under. They were standing on this water tower looking at the president's car. They saw two gunmen run from the bushes up onto the tracks, get into a freight car, right? And this train took off.
Oh, even the train was in on it.
Yeah. What?
The trains they even had the train ready.
Yeah, whatever. This particular track that this train was on extended from the tracks, the normal two tracks that went across the bridge. This was like an extension that went to the water tower so it could be filled.
Yeah.
The train. These tracks are gone now. The water tower is gone, and the 3 men are dead. All unnaturally. Every one of them died unnaturally.
Why were the water tower and the tracks removed? It was just...
Nobody knows.
And what happened to these men?
One died of a karate chop. Another was poisoned. I don't know how the third one died.
Surprisingly, are they relatively young men?
No. I don't think so. I think they were all middle-aged, more or less.
But it was surprisingly, how long after the assassination were they?
I don't know.
Well, these deaths went into years, but there were plenty of deaths.
And it's just surprising that from all looks of it, I really believe that E. Howard Hunt, and a lot of other CIA individuals were. It looks like to me a CIA plot. Did you hear about the story that James Tippit was the cop that was working for him was also working with the CIA too?
I
That's
know.
another thing I heard.
Well, the story about Tippett.
Tippit was out to get Oswald, and he knew he was cruising in an area where he didn't belong. His car wasn't in his sector. He went out of his sector and just was driving toward where Oswald lives. And they say that he also was working with the CIA as an informant or whatnot.
And he also had an extra uniform in his car that was
Exactly Oswald's size.
that was exactly Oswald's size.
What purpose?
So-
if any.
Theory has it that they were going to drive Oswald out disguised as a cop. Theory also has it that it was decided that Oswald was Fall Guy.
Well, no, the theory behind that.
Originally,
But there's
no,
something interesting that was said before. When Oswald said that he didn't shoot anybody, that's after he was captured.
yeah.
And that means positively that he's not lying. So
And
then
according to the stress
couldn't have shot
evaluator,
Tippett
he
either.
was not
Let's get the
lying.
story straight. Oswald
So he
wasn't
couldn't have
totally
shot
innocent.
Tippett either.
Oswald, according to theory, was working as for the CIA as whatever he, but like
He wasn't an
he didn't
informant.
know that this killing was supposed to take place. He was there.
He knew after it had happened,
Yeah,
which
but-
made him leave.
he might have been there for so many
Depository
reasons. You know,
It
they
made
could have
him-
put him there to protect. Oh,
It
one.
made him leave the depository early, right after Kennedy was shot. He left for no apparent reason. He just left. He didn't stay at the depository or anything like.
Well, one very
Yeah.
obvious proof that Oswald, how can I put this?
They said he would have.
Wasn't just no bystander, or wasn't just a person who got a job in the book depository.
there as a fall guy.
But no, well listen, Lee Harvey Oswald got a job at the book depository a day before the assassination. Up until
Yeah. It wasn't a day before, according to books. He was working there for about a month before.
I read different.
This guy
Well, it was
drove
shortly
him to, this guy drove him
Either
to
way, it
work.
was shortly before.
This guy drove him to work every day. He had
It was-
Well,
about-
that even proves the theory
You
more
can
because
positively
Yeah.
say that he wasn't
He was
working there
there-
years.
He wasn't there years. He was there 2 weeks to a month.
up until a day before the assassination, the parade route
It
was
was
supposed to
different.
go a different way.
And then right the day before it was put.
It was
by-
changed.
Yeah.
Now, if Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone and was a fanatic and a communist and wanted to kill the president, how did he know?
How could he have known?
How could he have known the parade route was going to be changed?
He couldn't know. It was broadcasted in the. It was changed about 3 days before the route was. It
It
was
was
originally
changed
supposed to go 3 days before.
3
and
days
it was
before?
printed in the papers
Then he could have known.
Then he
Yeah.
could have known.
that the car was going to come around that way.
Mhm.
They really didn't know why they changed the route 3 days before, because you have to because in the area that it was, the Secret Service didn't like it because it was an open area where he could have gotten shot. They were afraid of that. They didn't like the area that it was by. It called for too many turns. As a matter of fact, the car had to come down this way. Originally, it was supposed to go straight, then around, and underneath, right onto the freeway. This way, it had to come down, turn this way, turn that way. And this is, as he was turning this way and went out like that, that's when he got shot. But they said they had to slow down and turn and slow down and turn. They didn't like the idea, but they went through with it anyway. There was a lot of controversy about that change before. They just didn't like it because they said it was too many turns and this and like that, and they heard that it was unfriendly down there and stuff like that. There was a lot of, controversy. They didn't even want him to go down there. But there was a lot of different, because he had to turn twice instead of just keeping on going and curving over. And they said that the reason why they did it was because they curved over, they would have had to go over some kind of thing that they didn't want to go over or something like that. Maybe the roadway thinned out or something like that, and they didn't want to go through it. So they took this other way around. But Lee Harvey Oswald knew about the route change because it happened to be 3 days before the president came that they had changed it and printed it in the Dallas newspapers. He was going to go this way. The reason why I think they changed it was because Oswald was working in the depository and that they had Oswald set up as the fall guy without Oswald knowing about it. It could have been because they figured they could pin him some way or the other. And the reason why he was shot could have been that I don't know, I heard somebody say that he might have spilled the beans. Maybe he was waiting to get off, saying, well, they'll get me off of this, they'll get me off of this. And then they kept on waiting and waiting and figured that he would spill something saying that, well, I'm a CIA informant, maybe they set me up. And they didn't want that, so they had Jack Ruby kill him.
So Jack Ruby had to have CIA affiliations.
Well, they said that Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby were together at a party a couple of days before, week and a half before the assassination. They were together at the same party.
There's one hole in the Warren Commission that
they knew each other.
We're getting to the Warren
owner of a strip
Jack
joint
Ruby
became so
Lee
despondent
Harvey
over the
Oswald,
president's
and
death.
Lee Harvey Oswald knew
That
Jack
is a hole
Ruby
in the story.
because when Jack Ruby came out with the gun, as soon as he came out, Oswald looked at him and looked at him with a thing of recognition, not just surprise. He looked at him and he knew who he was. He was another CIA gun runner.
I saw that murder on TV, and well, it could have been that, and it could have just been surprise that just the instinctive reaction of someone rushing at you.
And there's another word that came out of his mouth too before that was, oh no, before he got shot.
Well, that could be a normal reaction. No, getting to the
and
one.
how he got in there in the first place. He just walked.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
It was known that Oswald and Jack Ruby were together at a party with the guy from New Orleans.
Wait, we only have a short
Sure.
time left.
Sure.
I think we ought to
Sure.
summarize a few things.
Well, we don't
Get
really
to the
that's all in Garrison's.
now because we'll be here next week.
That's all in Garrison's theory about
We'll just be
Okay.
the Kennedy assassination.
But what we've been saying about the Warren Commission, it's been proven that they didn't try to find what happened. All they did was try to prove
They went out to prove
that
one thing.
one person did it. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. There were too many inconsistencies, and
Exactly.
I think that it should be reopened because it concerns the it's very scary. Very scary. You know, you think about it and you don't think about it. But when you really think about it, you know, it's scary. What happened?
So we're just about out of time for now. So next week we'll continue. And we're going to try to get the next aspect of it. Okay?